You know, I gotta say, after watching Godzilla Minus One, I was just craving more Godzilla content, more kaiju content in general. I realized watching that movie, I love kaiju shit. I'm in the process of just watching more Godzilla movies and more King Kong movies because that shit's fun. And when I heard that there's a new Godzilla King Kong movie coming out, I was pretty excited. I can't lie. I'm like, oh, really? They're coming back? All right, let's go. And then I saw the trailer, and I saw this.
This is the most obnoxious thing I've ever experienced in my life.
I was riding my Godzilla Minus One high so much that I was like just like scrutinizing this garbage I was watching before my eyes. Like, oh, why is Godzilla running besides King Kong? He looks so weightless and just like, it looks so silly. And then I decided to get off my high horse when I realized that's what these movies have always been. Sure, you have great monster movies, the original King Kong, the King Kong Peter Jackson version, Shin Godzilla, Godzilla 1954, and now Godzilla Minus One. It's clearly possible to make a grounded, serious drama with giant monsters. It's been done. But by that same token, they have other uses. There's variety. And majority of that variety is Saturday morning cartoons. So yeah, when I first saw the trailer for this movie, I was a little bit like, you know, cynical towards it. Then I saw King Kong wield the Infinity Gauntlet and use it to like destroy a building that another monkey threw at him. And I thought, now you're talking. So I went to see it and I got out of it and it's a mixed bag.
You saved me. Why?
Monkey.
Two disclaimers. One, I'm gonna be spoiling the shit out of this movie. Before we watch this, go watch it, come back here, we'll talk about it. Disclaimer number two, I am not gonna be comparing this movie to Godzilla Minus One. It feels like an easy target and it's ultimately pointless. These two movies are doing two different things. Like Godzilla Minus One is a 3 Michelin star restaurant and Godzilla X Kong, the New Empire, is Wendy's. They're both good in their own respect. It's just, you know, not fair to compare them. So what goes on in this movie, huh? What's the story here? So this movie mostly focuses on Kong, right? Godzilla vs. Kong was a fair balance between Godzilla and Kong, but it was definitely more of a Godzilla story than anything else. But this time around, we're focusing more on Kong, which is great. I love Kong. You know, it's nice to see this giant monkey ape just hanging around Middle Earth. Not Middle Earth. He's not hanging out with Gandalf and Frodo. It's Hollow Earth. The movie opens up with him being chased by these like just ravenous hyena-like monsters. Towards the end of the sequence, he literally pulls it over his head, rips it in half, and just showers in its enemy's blood. And like the other ones just run away for how scared they are. It's awesome. And then after that, Godzilla decides to go take a shower under a waterfall. He's literally just shampooing his head and just rubbing his spits. It's great. He goes back home and just sulks about how lonely he is and how there's no more of his kind. He's literally sulking like a little baby. It's really funny. Speaking of babies, we're introduced back to Godzilla, who is now the protector of humanity. As Rebecca Hall puts it, Godzilla's fighting the battles that we can't.
Humanity is lucky. Godzilla's fighting the battles we can't.
When he's not fighting demon monsters like to save the planet, he's napping in the Roman Colosseum like a giant little toddler. Then one day Godzilla wakes up on the wrong side of the Colosseum and just goes on a tirade looking for monsters to fight. Normally, if monsters step on his turf, he comes out to defend them and beats them up, right? Not this time. He's looking for a fight. He's looking to throw hands. He's looking for someone to square up with. And everyone's like, what's Godzilla doing? What's the cause of this? What's happening? Meanwhile, in Hollow Earth, Kong finds more monkeys, including this little tiny little monkey. He forms like a father-son bond relationship with this tiny little monkey who hates him at first. So his new son just takes him to this colony of monkeys who are being enslaved and ruled over with an iron fist by Machine Gun Kelly. It's just a giant monkey that looks like Machine Gun Kelly. And he wants to escape the Hollow Earth and just rule over humanity on the surface of Earth. And it's Godzilla and King Kong's job to stop him before he dominates the Earth. That's pretty much the story, right? Oh, except there's more. There's more. This is where the interesting stuff comes in. It's also about Rebecca Hall, Brian Tyree Henry, and and some other people just expositing everything we see to our faces and not really contributing much of anything else to the story. That's the bulk of the movie, too. I'm not going to pretend to sit here and expect to have good, complex human drama from this movie like Godzilla Minus One did. I know what kind of movie this is going to be. I don't expect the human characters to be interesting. However, though, I expect them to do something. That's the main problem with this movie, right? It's the problem that's always been with these movies. It's the human characters who drag this shit down. We follow Rebecca Hall, the mute girl from Godzilla vs. King Kong, who's like Kong's bestie. Brian Tyree Henry from also the last movie, who's a podcaster. And this Aussie who's just Crocodile Dundee and Steve Irwin combined into one, apparently. So we just follow them throughout this entire thing as they explain everything we're seeing to us. They don't leave it up to our interpretation. They don't let us figure out for ourselves. They hold our hand and just talk to us like we're babies. Half the human characters in this movie don't even have any character arc in the slightest. We'll get to that in a second, though. I want to shower this movie with some praise a little bit at the very least. Give some positives. Everything with King Kong and Godzilla is really cool. They're the best part of this movie by a long shot. Effects-wise, they look pretty good. It's that kind of CGI where it's so obviously CG, but it's really polished and it looks just pleasing to look at. There aren't that many effects that take me out of the movie and are like distracting. It's held up pretty well, and it's especially at its best with the fight scenes. Whoa! But there lies a problem with these fights a lot of the time, and that is the lack of scale and weight. What makes these giant monster movies so entertaining is just seeing the sheer scale and size of these things compared to us. Something that the first Godzilla movie in the series does very well is show how massive he is and just how utterly small and insignificant we are compared to him. You feel his size and you feel his weight so that whenever he shows up in that movie, it's impactful. It feels like something. It feels important. But then in this movie, there are multiple points where they just lose that sense of scale and size. They just end up looking like men in costumes fighting each other. It's especially noticeable when King Kong is interacting with other monkeys in Hollow Earth, and like they just look like normal monkeys at that point. They just look so normal. It kind of pulls you out of the illusion a little bit. And because of the way it's shot most of the time with these monsters, that the battles end up becoming stale. So by the end of the movie, when we're at the final battle in Brazil, I'm just in my seat, eyes aglazed, numb to what's happening in front of me, and just letting these colorful images wash over me. You know, I was just waiting for the movie to be over at that point. That's not to say there are some good moments with those fights, though. I mentioned earlier how Godzilla and this little monkey have like a father-son relationship, right? And just like start bonding. That's not before when they first meet, when Kong grabs the monkey by its leg and starts beating the shit out of some other monkeys with it. I probably shouldn't treat this thing better. Actually, my mom gave this to me, so I'm gonna set you down right there, buddy. Not to also mention when Godzilla and King Kong finally reunite after over an hour into the movie, Godzilla just suplexes Kong to the ground. Like, what is this, WWE? This is what I want from these movies. Where has this been? Make more of this. I mentioned how it's like takes almost an hour or so or over to like for Godzilla and King Kong to meet up in the movie titled Godzilla x Kong, which leads me to another huge complaint with this movie, the pacing. Good God, what a mess. I was just sitting in my seat waiting for the movie to be over. I was thinking, man, this 2.5 hour movie did not need to be 2.5 hours. Come to find out, this movie is 2 hours long. This movie it's oh my God. I'm gonna give you a hint as to what drags this movie down the most. The main reason why this movie suffers and why every other monster movie with giant titans suffered to begin with. It's the fucking humans. They serve no purpose other than to just exposit bullshit that we already know. I'm gonna dig on Brian Tyree Henry first because he's by far the worst character in this movie, which sucks because Brian Tyree Henry is working so hard. He's trying his absolute best to make this nothing character somewhat entertaining, but he's just not. He's just the most annoying, useless, non-character I've ever seen in a movie before. If you took his character out of this movie nothing would change. The movie establishes that he's still making podcasts, but no one believes him even after everything he's seen. When Rebecca Hall goes to recruit him, he's like, oh, you gotta give me credit this time because you would have not like saved the day the last time if it weren't for me. And she's like, okay, you can come and I'll give you credit, yada, yada, yada. And in my mind, I can see where this character could go. I can see what his story is gonna be. He's super obsessed with, like, you know, getting fame. He wants to be proven right and be taken seriously. So every time he's in Hollow Earth, he's always filming shit, narrating shit, and, like, you know, getting all this proof that he needs to expose the public that he was right all along. But throughout the movie, Dan Stevens' character is like, hey man, what are you doing? Like, what do you plan to do with this footage once we get out? Like, this is a special place. We need to preserve this. I was fully expecting by the end of this movie for him to, like, you know, be given a chance to expose everything he's seen, only for him to, like, you know, throw his camera away saying, I don't need to prove anything. I know what I saw. I know I'm right. And that's all that matters. That's the least I expected. But they don't even do that. His arc isn't resolved at all. He just shows up, tells some shitty jokes, and just and f***s off. And, like, he's never seen again. Like, we go to the other character named Trapper, who is played by Dan Stevens. And he's my favorite out of the four. I really like him a lot. He is a veterinarian for monsters. His opening scene is performing tooth surgery on King Kong in the most epic way possible. I mentioned before, he's like a combination of Steve Irwin and like Crocodile Dundee, because like every scene he's in, he's like, wait a minute, something's in the air. Don't be chopping those trees down. You're upsetting the nature. You're upsetting the nature, mate. It's so over the top and so goofy that it comes around to being just kind of charming and likable. Rebecca Hall is the main character of this movie, along with the little girl, the mute girl, who's like her adoptive daughter. And her whole thing is like, oh, we discovered an ancient civilization down here where she belongs to. This is her real family. Oh my god, am I gonna lose my daughter forever? Am I gonna lose her to like the people of Hollow Earth? Oh, I must be ready to let her go. And of course, you know, she's like, no, I'm staying with you. You're my mom. You raised me. You know, like what are you talking about? There was an effort at least with that subplot. I believed. I not believed. I saw seedlings of you know, actual potential with that storyline, but it ultimately just didn't really matter. It drags on for so long. I just did not care. If the writing doesn't care about these characters, why should I? And let's talk about that. The writing, another mixed bag. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that this movie has masterful writing. It's an American Godzilla King Kong movie. Of course I'm not gonna expect any subtlety or like any like emotional depth from this. Of course not. It's not Godzilla -1 level of writing where it's like really good, but it's also not like Madam Web levels of bad. For the most part. There are multiple scenes with King Kong where he's like, you know, like communicating with the other monkeys. And for all those scenes, not a single word of dialogue is spoken. It's just purely body language, emotional, facial expressions. It's as subtle as it can be, and it's very convincing. It's very good. It's actually engaging. But when it comes to the human characters, they then just decide to hold your hand through every single line and explain it to you as if you were a baby. The constant need to like baby the audience and hold them by your hand is just infuriating and exhausting. It's so abundantly clear that the studio who made this movie doesn't trust the audience at all and thinks we're stupid. Who made this movie? Who produced this? Oh, that makes sense. I just don't understand what compels a studio to go, hey, let's not focus on the monsters fighting. Let's just focus on the boring humans. That. I want to see Godzilla ride King Kong's dick. The human characters in this movie purely serve as exposition and plot convenience. There's a scene in this movie where Machine Gun Kelly Monkey f***s up Kong and he's about to die, right? He's like, he's really in bad shape. And everyone's like, what do we do? Oh my god, what can we do to help him? And then Crocodile Dundee is like, wait a minute. We're not too far from the Project Power site. I'll be right back. I'm gonna get something for Kong. And he f***s off to the forest and comes back with a Nintendo Power Glove, fits it on Kong, injects him with some heroin, and then he's back to life. He's like stronger than ever. It's so stupid that I kind of respect it. There's no Chekhov's Infinity Gauntlet of this thing. There's no mention of it at any point early in the movie. They just randomly remember, hey, remember that glove that we have stored back there? Let's go get that and put it on Kong. Like, and we're just supposed to accept it. Okay! And once again, it's a mixed bag of movie. On one hand, you have a Saturday morning cartoon that is just schlocky, campy, bullshit fun that like you can turn your brain off and just mindlessly enjoy and just clap every time the giant monkey slaps the lizard. That's what I'm paying money to see. Then you have this boring, monotonous, tedious scene with the humans that provide nothing. The only explanation I can think of as to why they speak the way they do and they're written the way they are is for the little babies in the audience who have never seen a movie before. That's the only explanation, right? All right, let's bring it back down and let's talk about some good things about this movie because there's still quite a few good things. There's some really funny line readings in this too, like Madam Web levels of bad line reading. It's just, oh, it's so good. I also want to give a quick shout out to Rachel House, who's in this movie. You might know her from Thor Ragnarok. She's like Jeff Goldblum's assistant. She's really good in this. She plays the no-nonsense boss lady who works for Monarch. Her lines are so poorly written, but she delivers them with such sincerity and earnest that it becomes charming. She's a delight in this movie. I wish there was more of her in it. This movie's really funny too, like when it really wants to be. I can't tell if it's like, intentional or unintentional. I feel like the tiny little monkey being used as a weapon to beat the shit out of other monkeys was intentionally pretty funny. Then we have unintentionally funny moments like this scene. But let's talk about the villain, the Machine Gun Kelly monkey, right? He was so unintimidating and just very disappointing. The way they framed it in the trailer, in the movie too, I expected this guy to be this towering figure, even taller than King Kong himself. But when he's revealed, he's just a skinny e-boy ape. That's like all he is. When he and Kong first face off, like, he's shorter than Kong. He's just a hair higher than him. Is this guy seriously supposed to be the threatening villain here? The only reason he has any power is because he has control over another kaiju beast, and he uses his little, like, ice shard to control it. If he doesn't have that, he's not a threat at all. I see him the same way as I see Machine Gun Kelly. I don't care about him. He's there, he exists, whatever. And his goal is to, like, get to the surface world and, like, dominate Earth or whatever. But by the time he gets there, he just gets his shit rocked by Godzilla and Kong and gets sent back immediately. I don't even remember how he died. I don't remember exactly how they took him down. It was just so uninteresting, unspecial. He was such a whack-ass villain. This guy is supposed to be so threatening that Godzilla wakes up from his 2 p.m. nap to go up some other monsters to get enough energy to destroy this thing. If this guy is that threatening that Godzilla needs to, build up to defeat him, I expect this guy to be a unstoppable force of nature. And really, he's just a SoundCloud rapper. I don't know how else to describe it. That's exactly what he feels like to me. So yeah, they fight and they destroy Brazil, and that was very upsetting for me. By the time the movie ended, I didn't really feel much of anything. I had a good time with it. I really enjoyed the aspects that were fun and goofy and just silly fun. But it makes me wonder, what else is there to do at this point? Like, it's so clear that this series had no real planning and direction involved as to what it's supposed to be. This is the MCU of monster movies, right? I feel like there have been a plan for this. Now that we introduced Godzilla, King Kong, made them fight, and now made them team up, what else is there to do? Like, what, you're gonna introduce another big monkey? You're gonna introduce another giant lizard? Who's gonna care? Like, we've seen this already before. We know what's gonna happen. It's so clear to me that this movie is the studio just trying to please everyone as much as they can. Oh, you don't want as many human characters? Okay, we'll put them to the side a bit, but we're gonna make them exposit all this nonsense that really doesn't need to be exposited. Oh, you want more monster fights? Okay, we'll give you more monster fights, but they're not gonna have the same choreography and weight and scale that the other movies have that's done so well. I recommend you watch this because it's a good time, but at the end of the day, I just didn't feel as much as I wanted to. I left the theater thinking just, that was fine. That was good. That was a good time. I enjoyed that. And then I kind of forgot about it the next day. I literally had to write notes down just so I can remember what to talk about for this movie. I feel like there should be more to say. I want to say more about this, but the more I think about it, the more I realize there's nothing else to say about it. I've said all I need to say about this movie, and it still feels like it's not enough. It just feels like it's lacking that little extra something to make it stand out above the other MonsterVerse movies. And now with Godzilla -1 out and that movie on everyone else's minds, it's not going to measure up to them after seeing that movie. And they're going to leave the theater feeling rather unsatisfied. And I know I wasn't entirely satisfied with this. I just, I got what I wanted, but it didn't mean much to me by the end of it because I didn't care. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say. The goods definitely outweigh the bads for me here, and it's enough to make me possibly see this again at some point. I don't know. Time will tell. Yeah, go watch it. Have fun. Let me know what you think about it. Oh, I'm gonna watch Godzilla -1 now. Bye!